Hello, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Jorian Rubio, and today I'm going to be starting off my presentation with a quote from George Washington himself, the man who's on the $100 bill, one of our founding fathers of America. Make the most you can of the Indian hemp seed and sow it everywhere. George Washington. This guy is on the highest denomination, the highest note that we have in America. We thought him so great. He was so good. Let's put him on the 100. You know? That's who I'm quoting right now. So that's why I don't understand what's the problem with legalizing weed in Texas. Why can't we legalize weed? What's going on? What's holding us back? I don't understand. Not only does it bring a whole bunch of medical benefits, but it's economically beneficial, and it's just the next thing we need to do. Why lose? Why hold out on this? You know, why hold out? I don't get it. I don't get it. So first, I'd like to dismiss some of the common misconceptions that people have with weed, which is you can fatally overdose. You can die. You can't fatally overdose off of smoking weed. You can overdose. There are symptoms of overdosing, such as passing out, greening out, throwing up. Okay, you smoked too much. Okay, you drank too much, whatever. Weed lean. You know, you drank too much weed lean, now you're throwing up. Yeah, that's a real thing. You know, that people do have symptoms and adverse reactions. Of course, another thing that they brought up in William Health Teen Services is that sometimes if someone has an elevated heart rate and they have a heart condition, that's not a good thing for them. They shouldn't be smoking weed. I agree. I'm not going to give someone who, if I was a doctor, I'm not going to give you weed because you have an elevated heart rate and you have you have a heart condition. I'm not going to give you that. I'm not going to give you weed because it's going to probably make the situation worse and strain you a little bit. What I am going to do is think of other stuff, in other situations. Say someone who has PTSD, cancer patients, leukemia treatment, chronic treatment, they're going to need they're using weed to eat. They're going to need to have the THC concentrate that they have it, they put in you take like 5 milliliters of it, you put it on the bottom of your tongue, in 10 minutes someone will get hungry and want to eat. That's what we're marketing as, we kind of got to look past the other stigma of it, which in this William Health Teen Services that says, oh, it leads to depression, suicidal thoughts, and lower test scores and bad test scores in exams. Yeah, if someone's using it irresponsibly, they're going to get bad test scores in exams. But if it's used responsibly and used as a drug, if someone uses any drug irresponsibly, they're going to lead to lower test scores in exams. If someone drinks irresponsibly, it's going to lead to lower test scores in exams. If someone's just irresponsible, it's going to lead to lower test scores in exams. It's not the drug that they're doing. It's not the weed. That could be a factor. Of course it's a factor, but at the end of the day, it's the person is suicidal and the person's depressed. So that's why they're turning to weed and they're turning to drugs in general. And, and that's what they're doing. They're going to use it as an out. They're not going to it's not just the weed, it's the person. That's what we got to separate. We got to separate this from this. You can't just group everything and tell you how it is, because that's not how it should be grouped. To continue quoting that video that I watched when I first looked up what's medical marijuana, it's called Weeding Through the Weed Facts. To continue talking about it, is first thing it says is it kind of starts it off by saying, here's some of the dangers of marijuana. You can get spice. What's spice? Spice is synthetic marijuana that is sprayed on chemicals on plant-based material. You know what that's not weed. That doesn't really faze me, because as a person who's smoking weed, I'm gonna go out and get weed. I'm not gonna go out and get spice. For a teenager, of course, that's a problem. We can't say teenagers shouldn't even be smoking weed, but if they do, we don't want them smoking spice. So why would we even still make weed illegal? That's a valid point. Of course, it's a valid point, but it's just not the same. It shouldn't even be categorized in the same thing. If we're talking about legalizing weed, no one needs to mention spice. Why would you mention spice? Because it's not weed. It's spice. It's a totally different drug. So to continue this, it does have the elevated heart rates. Another great point that they pointed out. And I'm not going to sit here and bash the whole video, even though I don't like the video at all. And I don't like how they're comparing vaping nicotine and vaping THC and vaping. Vaping in general is bad. Don't vape. It releases lead and nickel into your system. Why would you want lead and nickel? Why would you want heavy metals in your lung? Doesn't make sense. So another thing though is it can be used to replace hard drugs such as prescription painkillers, sleep painkillers, Opioids and prescription sleep medicine is what it can be used to replace. That's a real thing. That's why in GL Smith and KF Smith and Enright, that's a whole study that they did on opioids being an adjunct to marijuana being an adjunct to opioids. Basically, marijuana replacing opioids. Now, I don't fully say that if I was a doctor, I'd only prescribe weed. If I was a doctor, I'd only prescribe painkillers. I'm not going to do that because it's up to the doctor if it's an educated doctor, which all doctors should be educated and be able to make right decisions like that, where they can say, oh, if someone broke their arm, give them Oxycontin, and then after that, we'll give them some weed to continue with the pain relief because, Oxycontin and painkillers are known to build addiction. It does build addiction. And you can fatally overdose off of these drugs easily. You can never fatally overdose off of weed, okay? That's a thing that people gotta let go. You can't fatally overdose. You can't die. You will pass out. You will throw up and then pass out, but you won't. If grandma went and took an edible and she doesn't have a heart condition and she doesn't have all of that and she went and took an edible and she's tripping out, grandma's gonna be tripping out for a little bit. Just put her to bed, then she'll be alright. So that's how we gotta kind of approach the situation. It's a drug. It's a hard drug. It's a drug. It's not a hard drug. I'm not comparing it to cocaine and meth and LSD and ecstasy. That's bad. That stuff will get you addicted. It's a party drugs. They're made to mess you up. They're made to release chemicals into your brain. That's not something that THC does. You releases THC into you. You're taking THC. It's a prescribed drug, So that's one thing that you have to say, you kind of have to show the difference. This is weed and this is all the other drugs. Don't do them. Even though if you whatever, don't do them. So in GL Smith, KF Smith, and Enright, that's what they use it as a replacement to hard drugs. So another thing is the economical benefits of these drugs, such as the tax. We can tax the living heck out of weed. We can tax the living heck out of it, man. We can tax it so hard. So for every ounce that you get from the Daily Democrat says, in every ounce that they get at one point in Colorado, the government was getting $50. In Texas, for every ounce that you sell, I want 100. I'm not gonna, that's the tax. That's just how it's gonna be. If I would have to put a tax on it. For every ounce that they sell in Colorado, if it was a $350 ounce, people were getting $50 off of it. The government was getting $50 off it. The people were keeping $300. You're making good money. They're still making good money. So at the end of the day, that's what I don't understand is the economic side of it. George Washington. We're gonna tax it. Let's get a George Washington out of it. Let's get 100 out of it. If we're gonna think about it in economic standpoints, which we should, because it's a great economic booster to Texas. It's a great economic booster to the whole United States. It's just crazy. It's gonna be crazy. If the sooner we get on the bandwagon, the more money we're gonna make. So why are we losing? Why are we losing out of it? I don't understand. But that's from Capitol Hill and the Daily Democrat. Capitol Hill is they're comparing senators and they don't even want to acknowledge the fact that Colorado is getting money off of all of this. No, they don't. They don't want to acknowledge it because we're making so much money from somewhere else. There's just a lot of other money being made. Why not jump on this train? Why not make some more? Doesn't make sense to me. But that's one thing I'd like to say. So to quote, the Thomas Jefferson even used to smoke weed himself. He would smoke weed in the back of his backyard. So thank you. I'd like to thank you.